Hello and welcome to today's episode of Pictures on My Mind. I'm your host Edward Thompson and I'm actually having my first ever guest in the cellar. That's right, and my guest is none other than Claudia Leisinger. Claudia Leisinger is a documentary photographer based in London. She's worked across many different modes as a storyteller using both still and moving image. She's a passionate and complex photographer and also a good friend who I happened to study photography with 17 years ago. So look, right, I've got to say, it was 2007, we're in Elephant and Castle, we're up the tower block, which is still there, it ain't great, but we're right at the top, we've been stuck in this room, and it's a lot of us students after a lecture just sat with our laptops going through what we've been photographing. It's right at the start of the year, and Claudia, you've been doing a project on Gravediggers in London, and you started showing this amazing black and white work to us, and it was one of these amazing moments where like everyone in the room was looking at these photos, and it was like the photos we'd been looking at in class. It was, amazing. They were great. And it was this real penny drop moment where we felt authentic. Like obviously we felt really proud for Claudia because she had this amazing work, but for all of us, it's like, holy moly, like it can be done. Like we can do this. And that was such a great moment. So look, can we go from like right now, should we go throwback right back to, that project?
So Gravediggers, I think that was our April sort of.
Was that a one month project? That was it.
Yes, the first sort of 12-image photo essay.
Yeah, I love that you did Gravediggers, which went to an amazing way that you'd never imagine. And I had people on a miniature steam railway. It's not quite the same, dramatic really cool energy. But yeah, weirder. But yeah.
Yes, I like Nunhead Cemetery. I always did. And I
Which one, sorry?
Beautiful. Nunhead Cemetery.
Nunhead.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I went there and I met one of these guys and I was just introducing myself and I said what I wanted to do. And they were like, yeah, all right. And I was like, oh, okay, cool.
And you did this kind of classic photo essay which had all been taught about putting this story together. Yeah, but then, like weirdly, although you were just sort of doing this very kind of like project about the Gravediggers, something really tragic happened and this sort of national story kind of came to you.
Yeah, there were a lot of like young people who died from gun violence and I was taking these images, and then I heard, I was talking to one of the Gravediggers and I was saying, what's going on, and they just said, this weekend we are going to have the funeral of this Michael Dunley, the guy, he's 15 years old, guy who got shot in his bedroom, and I was like, whoa, bloody hell. And we talked about this before, because when I chatted to them, they were, I asked them lots of questions about, what is the most difficult part of the job, and they were saying to me, the most difficult thing is having to bury children or young adults, and so I was aware of the, it was just obvious that it was going to be really tough, and I sort of said, do you think I could come along and photograph? And I was thinking, he's going to say no. And I felt a bit odd about it. And then basically what I did is I got in touch with the funeral director, and then the funeral director got in touch with the family and asked them if it was okay if I came. And they said yes. So I was there, and there was two other people, I think they were filming, and I was taking pictures. And I think I remember really clearly I was standing quite far away, because I was just like, I don't want to in any way like get in the way of this. And at the time I felt really like, oh man, it's so typical you need to get closer, you need to go in and stuff. Because, there's always this voice. Where
that's how we were trained. If your image isn't good enough, you're not close enough. You've got to get in there, baby. But then also, a huge part of us, I think, as documentary makers, has always been that kind of sense of respect.
Yes.
And because the weird thing is, if you are respectful, then people will let you in further. It's a weird thing. It's like if you are pushy and edging in, people will tell you where to go, and they're totally in their rights to do that. If you're polite and respectful, it's weird the way the universe works. You seem to get more that way. It's like, I don't know, it's like tortoise and the hare. It's like some weird thing about just sort of how you approach it.
I think you can just, this is the funny thing about, at the beginning when we started out, and street photography or any sort of approaching strangers and asking them, can I photograph you? And it's really that thing about, I was thinking a lot about it at the beginning. I was so nervous, buzzing, And then after a while, I think in my mind, I just sort of made this thing where I was totally clear for myself that if somebody says no, I have no hard feelings. Like I just go, okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
And I think that often is, I don't know, I feel people can smell that. They can really smell it, whether I'm interested, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't ask the question. But there's no push. It's just an interest. It's almost like an engagement. It's like, hey,
Can I let you into a little secret? I'm always nervous. It's like that scene in Incredible Hulk where he's like, wow, how are you not angry? And then he just turns and says, I'm always angry, and turns into the Hulk. I'm like always nervous, and I think that's my weird thing, is that I think people just feel like if I was to do even street portraiture still and ask someone, they'd probably feel how nervous I was and probably just say, yeah, go on then, just because they're like, Jesus, this guy, he's on the edge. Let's just give this guy a break. He just wants a photo. Let's just give him his photo. So there's that going on, but amazing. So from there, obviously the next massive project I remember you, and again, it's a real watershed moment because you went from shooting very much reportage black and white, then jumping to colour slide transparency film, shooting at the Billingsgate fish market, which, can I say, at the time, I never said this to you, really low light, shooting colour slide. Are you out of your mind? Like the latitude of colour slide film is so tiny. Like if you shot black and white film, you'd have loads to play with if you got your exposure wrong.
Yeah.
But shooting on colour transparency film, wow. And you were just a new mum as well. The whole thing was absolutely wild. But yeah, tell us more.
I mean that basically was a sort of a desperation, I guess. I think as you just mentioned, I was new mum. Harper was she was born, and the first year of her existence, I just pretty much I was there with her and at home, and I did the odd jobs, but it's sort of like I did commissions and stuff, but I didn't work for my own projects, and so I was after 1 year I was like so desperate. And I remembered very early on when I came to London, or I think it was even on a visit with my dad, I went to Billingsgate fish market, and I remembered this sort of the visualness of the fish porters and the white, like stiff kind of, the overcoats and the little animal badges, and I just remembered that, and I thought for a start I wanted to have more work and different sort of work, and so I was like, I'm gonna go back there and I'm gonna make a portrait series, very simple, of these portraits. And at the time, I know I was very much in love with the sort of, full-length portraiture.
August Sander meets kind of then Reneke Dijkstra, then like all the way along the gamut of that kind of...
Yes, exactly. And sort of just... Work. I think work is something that has always really lingered with me, and people who are working, concentrating, who are sort of at work. I've always been fascinated with this idea. And anyway, so basically I went there one early morning because they start at 4:00. Like the 4:00 goes.
But you were up then already.
I was then up anyway.
Hey.
Yeah. No, but the thing about this project, why it actually was ideal for me, is because, yes, 4 till 8, and then finished. So by the time I got back, Harper got up. So it was just awesome.
Such a good strategy, Claudia. Such a good strategy.
I know. And it was one of these things where, again, I don't know. I don't really... I'm not really big on, like, strategy. It just happened, So I went there and I took some photographs. And it was funny because the first guy I met, Brad Singers, he was just such an amazing person to photograph. It's like everything's happening, and he was so sweet. He was young, and so I photographed him, and I photographed a couple of other people, and then I went back a couple of weeks later, or maybe a month later, with the printed image that I had from him, and then he was like taking it and ran through the whole market with his photograph, showing everybody, and obviously he just opened all the doors for me, because they were all like, oh yeah, I'd like one of those.
I mean, made them look like rock stars, let's be honest. They did look great. And, you know, and you could see there was kind of camaraderie there, and there's a lot of humour there as well. You could see the playfulness that came through. Yeah. You know, you didn't just do portraits, though. You had a lot of nice kind of reportage moments, shot through windows, shots in cafes, that you really sort of captured what was going on. Now, let me get this straight. Were you shooting it and then they announced a closure while you were shooting it, or did that happen, or was that just a long time coming?
That happened before, but I was coming and I was... So after I took Brett's portrait, and then the next time I came, I started talking to some of the men there, and they told me about... So I basically said, hey, you know, shall we do something together? I'd like to sort of make a series of portraits and so on. And then they told me, oh, you know, yeah, you're coming at a good time because we might not be around anymore much longer. And I was like, hey, hang on, what? And so they told me about what's happening. So the fact that their licenses weren't renewed by the City Corporation of London, and that they were basically fighting for their jobs. And I remember coming back the next time and then talking, you know, bringing back some more portraits, and then talking to some of the people that I have sort of now, you know, started a relation, or I mean, and it's sort of like an early friendship with. And I said, you know, would you consider doing sort of something with me together on this? And they were like, yeah, why not? And it was, I mean, it's really funny because it's like, I think for them, I was just some total weirdo who just comes every week and takes pictures. And the thing is, there were a lot of photographers. Photographers always. Oh. And so they were almost used to that. But what they thought was really strange is that I come back again and again.
Well, that's the whole documentary photographer thing, you know?
Yeah.
We're like, you know,
exactly. And so the end product is this 3-minute and 33-second long video, like multimedia thing,
and it's
right?
It's absolutely brilliant. The amount of students over the years I've played that to, or had you come in and talk about it, it's such a wonderful work. Because, again, it's a bit like, you know, the voice. You're recording all these, you know.
I think I've always recorded audio, even in Bhutan, when I did the story on Bhutan, and I just never did anything with it because it's so much work. So with these guys, I was obviously fascinated because of the accent, the Cockney, and then also they were just so funny. I mean, so much happened, just like banter, you know, quick. And I just felt like I had to sort of catch some of that. And also, at the very end of that year, I then did interviews with them. And that was, I think that happened by chance, but it was actually, if I were to do it again, that was the right thing to do. Because by then, we were like good friends. And also, actually, by then, it was almost hard to take photographs. Because I arrived and everybody's like, hey, and then
they're
chatting.
Performing,
and just wanted to hang out and chat. And that was really lovely.
And I think we were trained, I mean, I did a lot of recording in Texas on a Walmart voice recorder. That's all useless now. I think I can barely download them. But I was just doing it to get, what's your name, where you're from, who, what, when, where, why. So I think our training as photojournalists, that came into play. But it went something further. So where did you jump from Billingsgate? I'm like your official biographer now. I can't quite remember. So what happened? I'm trying to leap forward a bit here. You tell me. You tell me your projects. Oh, you mentioned Bhutan. Now, this is amazing, right? Because obviously people look at Claudia and be like, yeah, she's photographing in Switzerland and Swiss and blah, blah, but you grew up in Bhutan.
Yes. I was born in India, and then we moved back to Switzerland, and then we moved to Bhutan. And we lived there for 4 years, so from 2 to 6, that's very early memories.
Yeah, but my girls are 4 now, and I'm pretty sure they're going to remember calling me Smelly Daddy. I'm pretty sure that's gonna happen. So, like, I'm sure you've got memories. I'm sure you've got memories.
Oh, no, I've got loads of memories. Yeah, I got loads of memories, and I think as well it's just because then from Bhutan moving to Switzerland was major clash. Major for all of us. It was really, really difficult, and so it's almost like it feels like a time before time, you know, sort of like there was very clear severance. It was totally different in Bhutan. There was like, you know, there was one car, we had to be afraid of bears, and we didn't go to school. We went, we did a little bit of school, but not really, and we were so free. And yeah, we were out all the time. We had a monkey. I mean,
It's pretty cool. And it wasn't Sesame Street. It was a real monkey.
It's pretty
but the
cool.
thing with that is that I find that so funny to do with, sort of travel and engaging with people, going to different places or from different places, and the fact that like people would maybe look at you and make that judgment call, like, look at this European woman, what's she know about the moving around and the stuff? But you know, you travelled so much in such a sort of in a formative years. Now, you know, I was nearly born in Alabama, but I was born a little bit prematurely, so I didn't make it. And I think we must have left Alabama when I was like 4, but I got vague memories of Alabama. I know. And then I moved from Wales to England with a Welsh accent at 8. Can you imagine how hard that was? Being a little Welsh boy in Kent. Not good. Where am I going with this?
No, but I think what's really interesting is that, yes, I felt like an outsider, definitely in Switzerland, also because I think my family is was very different from anybody else living. We moved to a tiny village, has to be honest. So that wasn't maybe not the best idea my parents had.
Like, I can remember stuff vividly from Wales and even glimpses of Alabama, and I think it's because it was so different. I think people who grew up in one town their whole life, they have trouble remembering earlier memories. But when you've got vivid memories of somewhere very different, you do remember them because the days haven't all blended together. So on that front, maybe it affects your visual perception in that you're suddenly very early on being like, I'm learning about the world. Holy moly, this place is really different. It's sort of, it destabilizes you a little bit. So you're a bit like, whoa, like things can look different, places can be different, people can be different. But you've got that double whammy of that mixed in with that sense of being slightly on the peripheral. That sense of being a little bit like an outsider and kind of looking into a situation, which I think is something you just naturally have as a photographer anyway, because you're there being an idiot with your camera, standing on the edge of the room, pretending no one knows I'm here, you know, so, yeah.
I mean, that was one of the reasons, because when I was sort of 17, 16, I started taking pictures and I really loved it. But then I made a conscious decision not to do it anymore, because I felt like I was then, if I were to become a photographer, at that moment in time, I thought that will condemn me to forever be on the outside. And I didn't want that. So then I sort of, studied biology and I became a teacher, secondary school teacher. And then after that, I realized that, I think I sort of have to try it. And that's when I started taking pictures again. I mean, because I find photography and the practice of photography unbelievably healing, and I think especially for people like me or us who are sort of on the outside. You have to sort of map. You have to map your life, and I don't know. I have my sense is that maybe if you are embedded completely, I don't know if anybody is, but if you were to be sort of really embedded in a community, maybe you don't have to map your life so much. Maybe you don't have to figure out or have to sort of make evidence of what you're seeing. I don't know, but I feel photography is an unbelievable tool to heal. Yeah.
See, I didn't have to worry about not doing photography at 16 for worrying about being an outsider and unpopular and people think I'm a weirdo, because I was always an unpopular weirdo, so it didn't matter. So I just kept going. So yeah, so there's that. So I had no fallback plan. You can still be a biologist. Check you out. I didn't know that about you. That's so funny. I learned that today. I didn't know. Well, yeah, sure. Whereas look at me. Like, there's no plan B. I'm in my cellar. You know what I mean? Like,
what a cool
this is my plan B. This is plan B.
I love it. It's really cool.
Thanks, thank you. We could talk about the pinball machine a bit, because I've never had a guest before. No? Oh, yeah, look, so check it out, yes. So this was a publication you did with Another Place Press.
Yes.
Voila. It surprised me, the work, because it was so unlike, I don't recall you ever doing a landscape series before. Was this right?
Yes, basically In Common is my desire to face up to what I see when there is nothing going on. So, and also I love nature, and I get so much from nature.
From walks, right?
Walking, but yeah, just I think it's it's so funny. Like when I'm driving through a place, I am making markers with trees and stuff like that. So it's like that's my markers. Like I go, okay, that's where this tree is.
There's a bear, there's a monkey.
That's this really awesome sort of plant. No, seriously. And I don't know, they're just really, really important to me. It's where I go find anything that I want. And so basically, yes, I have Stella, so I always go.
Your
Stella's
dog?
my dog, so I always go with Stella on these walks. And I started to take my camera with me and just photograph. And the thing is, I was at the time was fascinating because I was also sort of thinking about meditation, and I was thinking about dissolving. So this idea of sort of what I love about documentary photography is that, to me, when I'm starting photographing, I dissolve. Like I don't really feel any sort of itch, or I don't need, I don't think about myself.
I don't eat. I don't feel the cold. I don't feel the heat. I go into a weird Zen thing as well, where I'll forget I haven't drunk any water in hours, or I haven't. It's weird. It's a weird thing, isn't it? The minute you were saying that, I was like, oh my god, I totally get that. And
I love that place. But when I was photographing these Roma families and sort of become more and more aware that this form of maybe photographing and working is not going to be that accessible for me, I have to find a new way to doing it. I was really sad because that thing, I love it and I really thrive on it. I'm good at it. And this is what I was talking to Carol about. I was saying, oh man, what am I going to do if I can't practice this anymore, or if I don't want to practice this anymore? How am I going to do this? Where you are sort of there, but you're not there because you are acutely there. You're really
zoomed
there.
in. You're
Absolutely.
looking like. I mean, my perceptual levels are just they go wild.
Yeah.
Like almost just out there.
It's amazing, no?
Yeah.
I think actually. I mean, I think it's possibly sort of like a state of praying, or it could be something similar.
You mean sort of, there's different types of meditation, but say like a more kind of Buddhist meditation where it's more about negation. So it's sort of trying to sort of clear, trying to become like blank.
Yeah.
Trying to.
Yeah. It's a wonderful state to be in. And so basically I was thinking, okay, I need to find a way how I can practice this and just be. And so this came about because I was just sort of walking around and thinking, I am going to find out what is my visual language? What is the things that trigger me just by doing it? So I'm going to walk. The moment I see something that I'm interested in, I just take a photograph. I don't think about it. I just continue. The other thing I also really wanted to stop is these voices in your head that are telling you...
Not the voices in my head. How do you know about them?
Not in your head.
Oh, okay.
My head.
Okay.
That are telling you, you should cover this from another angle, and you should do this, and you should go there, and you should, and sort of like, and I felt like I just needed to shut them down and just make a decision. So this is how this came about. So just walking around, seeing something I think is interesting, take a photo, move on. And then once I've done that for, I think it was a couple of years or so, I looked through these images and I really like them.
And then you put the publication together with...
So I really like these photographs, and then I also thought about, the fact that what is it that these walks are giving me, and they're really making me feel connected, to belong somewhere, and so I called it In Common, and I then approached Photo Scratch. And I showed it at Photo Scratch.
Oh, they're great events. If you don't know, it's generally in London, and people just pin up work they're working on, and then people just walk around. There's little boxes where people write stuff, and they slip in some advice or whatever, and you have a chat. So that's a really, really nice way of doing it. Because once you've finished university, man, you don't have that kind of peer-to-peer network. So there's no more hanging out in the tower at Elephant and Castle, having people say nice stuff about your work. Instead, you're like, oh, you've got your mum who's really nice about your work. But you need some criticism too.
Yeah. No, so Photo Scratch is really great because it's works in progress. So you show your work and then you get feedback on that. And, lots of people are like... And also it's just about presenting the work as well that really helps to shape your thoughts. And you get feedback from peers. And it's constructive feedback. And what is so cool about it is that when you participate in Photo Scratch, you can't just sort of linger around. You have to give feedback. They are really clear about this. That's your job, right? You come, you give feedback. And when you present your work, you also give feedback to the people who are presenting alongside you. And it's really, really helpful. I really recommend for people to do that. I would love to do that with any of the projects that are sort of, in progress. Anyway, during that, somebody suggested that I get in touch with another press.
Another place.
Another place, press.
Bless. Bless you.
Shit!
That's okay.
In touch with another place, press, and Ian Sergeant. And he liked it, and he suggested we make a zine for his field notes. And I've seen the scenes there; they're really lovely. So it was good. Yeah,
it's always nice to put work out there, and it's such a sort of accessible format. It's a really fun way of doing it.
And it's good because it's super cheap, for people to buy.
But it's real and it's there, and
and it's sold out.
Yeah, there you go. Sold out, you say. But yeah.
But also, I think what is so funny for me is like I was so nervous to show this work because it just feels like it feels most me than any other work, because it's
your meditation.
Fair to say it's not that visually exciting. You know what I mean? It's just landscapes, and I really liked. I still continue the project, and I think one day I want to make a big book, because the only thing that I think is definitely clear is that the images don't really come out that much on the smaller format.
Yeah, for landscape, nice to be big.
Another project that I'm working on that I think is really beautiful is I am basically digitizing my granddad's archive. He was a dentist, but also really, he loved photography. He was an amateur photographer. He had a Rolleiflex, and he traveled to Europe between 1932 till 1964, when he unfortunately had a stroke. So, but between that time, which is, major shifts happening in Europe, he traveled and he photographed the streets and people, and there are some unbelievable photographs.
2¼ inch black and white, like medium format square.
Yeah, square. Yeah. Rolleiflex.
Yeah, lovely.
I brought my camera with me. Do you want to see my granddad's camera?
Yeah. We want to see the camera, right, guys?
Yeah.
There we go.
This is my granddad's camera, and he has loads of little bits that go with it as well.
Yeah. So what year is this camera, do you reckon?
I think that's most probably one of his latest models.
Yeah.
He must have had many of them, but
Definitely.
he has definitely photographed with this in 1964, 63.
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah.
Looks good.
Yeah,
One thing that's nice with a twin lens is that if you're shooting black and white, often back in the day you'd want to put filters to make your contrast a bit punchier, maybe a yellow filter, an orange filter.
Mm-hmm.
The trouble with like a lens, like a single lens, you'd be looking through it and it would make the view darker, like harder to see. Whereas with a twin lens, anything you put over that the lens that you're photographing out of, it doesn't matter because you're looking through the other lens because it's two lenses.
Exactly.
So for black and white and filters, whatever, it's a fun little camera to have.
Yeah.
I never had one. I never had a twin lens.
Oh.
No. But yeah, lovely.
Yeah, so and it's really wonderful to digitize this archive, because it's just we were talking about belonging before, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think for me it's been absolutely wonderful to see his images, and there's only 10 frames per roll.
12.
All right.
It's 10 frames. Well, we're going to get the film out and check.
12. But anyway, there's not many, and I just find it fascinating, what he photographed, because he photographed, what was his main focuses, and I think one of them are animals, and it's just lovely to see.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of nice to have that connection again throughout time. The fact that you're a photographer and you're shooting, you're obviously shooting film at the beginning. This is all shot on film.
Yeah.
We'll have to have a look at some of the negs or some of the scans.
Yeah. So basically, the one project that I am really keen on is called Rebel Portraits, and it's basically mixed media thing. So I'm making having long conversations with people that are in Extinction Rebellion or in other environmental sort of activism, involved in environmental activism, and I'm talking to them about how they got into these roles, but also how to sort of square up this idea of like my pain is so big that I need to show it to you, and I not only show it to you, but also maybe I am going to make you stop in your tracks to tell you about it, and how that also, I think being an environmental activist right now means that you sort of have to still step out of some of the really clear conventions that we have in our societies about, you know, engagement and about space. And you're stepping out of this to, you have to pay a price for it. And so how do you do that? How do you step out of it? Having been, you know, a law-abiding citizen for a very long time, and, you know, loving life and democracy and all of these things that we really appreciate. And then how do you square this up? You know, I think that is that fascinates me. So I'm doing these video portraits where I'm basically just filming them being very still, almost in a meditative state, because I believe that this sort of activism comes from a quiet place.
And normally they're being depicted obviously at a peak moment by, say, a photojournalist where they're screaming and waving a placard and shouting. So it's like, that's not what they're like all the time. These are people, and you're seeing them at that peak moment where now they're trying to express, you know, how concerned they are, how worried they are, how angry they are, and that's the only thing that's being depicted, rather than from the place from where it's coming, which is obviously a place of knowledge and a place of worry.
Yeah, and also a place of care, and I think, so I want to show that side. I wanted to sort of like, you know, make that more visible, that actually where it's coming from is a most probably a place of stillness, you know, when you have to sort of quiet down and assess the situation and go, hang on, what's actually happening? I think for me this is a really interesting, I mean, again, for me what is so cool about this project, it is my question. I want to know the answer to this question. I want to figure this out. And so I was like, okay, so I really need to square this up for myself. I mean, this is the amazing thing about what we do, right? You have a question that bugs you.
Yeah.
You go and you
find it.
Find answers to it. And, you know, the more answers you get, the better.
One thing I wanted to bring up to you, popped into my head, I should have done this way earlier, was like, we know lots of photojournalists that we trained with, and I've been speaking to some recently where, let's say there's something like, you know, very heated, very controversial, very political, very, you know, all these really hot topics going on in the world, and a photojournalist will say, I'm impartial, I'm a photojournalist, I don't take sides. And there are a lot of people who, you know, have done work like that, and that's their vibe. I've never been like that. I never forget when I was doing my Occupy London work and I did a little talk at the Billingsgate Institute, and they introduced me as an activist, which I never thought of myself as. Am I an activist? I don't know. I know that I was there as much as they were there, and I photographed it, and I was very vocal, and I managed to get work published, and I was sort of, you know, very partisan. I was very on the side of the people I was photographing. So I guess that's a weird one. Like, I mean, I guess I'm not a photojournalist, and the reason I'm a documentary photographer is because I do try and express kind of how I feel in the topics I pick and the way I approach them. Is that something, a label, if someone said, hey, you're an activist now, would you be like, oh shit, or would you be like, oh yeah, of course I am?
No, yeah. Of course I am.
Yeah. But like, I know some photographers, you know, you'd say that and they'll be like, oh no, I'm not. No, I'm an impartial photojournalist. I'm so objective.
I am not impartial at all. I have a very clear point of view, and I think it's really important. And I think that's what is so important to me now, is that becomes more visible in my work as well. So it's much clearer, because I think, you know, you can have an opinion. It just needs to be transparent. That's what you are basically, you know, what you are standing in for. And I mean about the environment and where we're heading. That's, for me, I have a very strong opinion. So there's not two ways about it.
And I think that for me, a big paradigm shift, and you hit it earlier, is becoming a dad, like becoming a parent. Like suddenly, like it's a whole different kind of world. In many ways one, but in the idea of, it's like in the Letters to Our Children thing, it's the idea that, you know, you're invested in a future even beyond yourself. Like it's not about like, well, I'm going, so we might as well set the place on fire. It's like, well, actually, no, I have a best interest in this place being like not only habitable, but better than when I came along, hopefully. Although that seems to be like an ever dwindling dream. But
I think with this project we were just really, we wanted to be not another voice that basically touts tons of facts and figures, because I mean, I myself, I can't really, you give me a fact and I'm go like, oh, whatever. It doesn't really, it doesn't impact me. And I know some people are impacted by facts and figures, and that's brilliant. And they are catered for. But where we wanted to sort of hook in is really about just the simple message of, hey, if you don't do it for yourself, just do it at least for the next generation. Do it for your children. Get interested, participate, figure out what actually is the question here. What is going on? And I understand that it is a sea of pain. Looking at this all and going, hey, I don't really want to get anywhere close there, right? I don't want to engage with this because I know it's going to be painful. And once you have looked at it and you understand even a fraction, because I don't understand most of it, but if you even understand a fraction of it, it's scary and it's painful. But I think not looking at it is also really painful. For me, it's more painful not to look at it.
It's like the Plato's cave thing. It's like once you step out the cave, man, once you're aware, you can't go back. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Claudia. Thank you for coming to the cellar and being my first guest.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
It.
I'm trying to work out how to end it. Could you somehow slyly grab that green screen? Could you reach the green screen?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming to the cellar and being my first ever cellar guest.
I am honoured.
The only thing is the stairs are broken now, so we can't take the stairs out. But don't worry, I've got a solution.
Yeah.
We're going to I think we're going to phase out into another dimension. So here we go. You ready? And we're phasing now.